Chicano, a word used to demean those of Hispanic descent, usually used to demean those in lower social classes. As a Mexican, I found it very interesting to research what has come before and the struggles many Chicanos faced and how they overcame it. Currently, the word Chicano is used to describe people of Mexican descent born and raised in the United States, often emphasizing a unique identity rooted in Mexican heritage and the Chicano movement. Speaking of the Chicano movement, the purpose of this speech is to inform you about the struggles many faced during the Chicano movement and how they overcame it. First, I'll go over the East Los Angeles walkouts of 1968. Next, I'll go over the United Farm Workers movement. Finally, I'll go over the Mexican muralism movement and how it shows Chicano pride. A struggle many Mexican Americans were facing was education and the lack of it. During the 1950s, the graduation rate for Mexican students was around 60%, and they were less likely to pursue further education. Because of this, many schools gave up trying on educating the Mexican students, leading to many to lack basic education like reading, writing, and math skills. Many were shunned for just speaking Spanish, which was frowned upon in public schools. Fed up with these injustices, a teacher named Sal Castro brought these issues to light to the principal of Lincoln High School, but was showed disinterest. As a result of the lack of support from the principal, Castro began to teach his students about their Aztec heritage. This was the spark and backbone of the East LA walkouts, as many students were inspired and began to question why they were neglected by their teachers and why they were not getting a proper education. Soon enough, students began to spread the word about having a walkout. Around 7 schools participated in the walkouts, including Wilson, Roosevelt, Garfield, Belmont, Venice, and Lincoln High School. These walkouts took place in a matter of days, as students would walk out day after day. After a week of protests and meetings with the Los Angeles Board of Education, many of the students' demands were met, which include a more inclusive curriculum, bilingual education, and the implementation of Mexican American faculty. Imagine working long hours in the fields just to get paid pennies for your hard work. This was the reality of many farm workers in the 1960s. Thousands of farm workers were struggling with poverty, while the companies they were working for were getting richer. Most of these farmers were struggling with poverty were Mexican American. These farmers were unable to sustain themselves and their families because of how little they were paid. Fed up with this, a Mexican American farmer named Cesar Chavez decided to start a farmers union called the National Farm Workers Association, later changed to the United Farm Workers of America. The United Farm Workers of America used nonviolent means to get their message across. An example of this is the 250-mile walk from Delano to Sacramento, which was a big part of the Delano grape boycott, which was striking a boycott of Delano grapes. Their previous attempts of striking failed, as Chavez believed fighting in the farms themselves would be futile. So this strike was their attempt in raising public awareness about their treatment of farm workers and their struggles in getting better pay and working conditions. These strikes and boycotts were a success, as it resulted in many companies that abused Mexican farm workers to sign contracts that raised their pay, gave them health care benefits, and more safety protection against pesticides. If you ever walked in the streets of LA, note that there's a lot of graffiti and art on many buildings. Many of them just for graffiti, but what about those large-scale art pieces that cover the whole wall? This is called a mural, and is best described as the artistic movement focusing on a large-scale painting or a mural, often on public buildings with social, political, or humanitarian themes. But I more specifically want to focus on the Mexican muralism movement, which emerged after the Mexican Revolution. The Mexican muralism movement began in the early 1920s in Mexico. Many of the people who created murals were commissioned by the government to show the country's history and to give their citizens hope for a better future. It is more or less a way for artists to retell the history of Mexico in a more modern way. Many murals were created through the 1920s to the 1970s and were created in order to glorify the indigenous aspects of the Mexican culture. Many murals depict, as mentioned before, the indigenous people, the working class, and Mexican pre-colonial history. Even though it is a way to show people's hard work, history, or what they're currently doing in the current day, the Mexican muralism movement serves as a way to show Mexican people's pride in their heritage. Overall, many Chicanos in the past have faced many challenges, but that did not negate them from taking pride in their heritage. The Chicano movement serves as a reminder to show us that even though we're facing issues personally or as a society, there are ways to overcome them and people willing to help. We can see this in the East LA walkouts, as many students uplifted each other and found ways to get a better education and how Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers Association were able to get a better working condition for the farmers in the U.S. Finally, we can see how the Mexican realism movement was able to lift and show the history of the Mexican people, giving them hope for a better future. Even though I wasn't able to see these challenges overcome in the past, it still gives me hope to know that many were able to overcome the issues plaguing them in the past, and to know that they were able to overcome them through peaceful means.